Welcome to the ThunderCast, your martial athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hugnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast. You can follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod. Great once again to be behind the microphone with my good buddy, Russ Livingood. Always like getting to do the ThunderCast, and it's becoming such a harder thing for me to be able to do here lately. And man, it's just it feels good when I'm able to do that. I love to podcast. I love to talk about the herd, and I like to spend a little bit of time with you doing those things. So we've had a lot just that has happened. I know since you and Jed have been able to do an episode, a whole lot has happened since I've been able to do an episode. But we're right in the meat and potatoes of championship season for a number of our programs. A number of our programs are just getting going in their respective seasons. And I think there's a lot for herd fans to be happy about on both of those fronts. So I think we just need to get in and start talking about whatever it is we're going to talk about today. But I don't know what's on the agenda.
Well, just real quick, Jed and I have not recorded in a while, and to save comments at the end, I just want to say Jed had a family member pass away, and we just have not recorded for that reason. Sometimes things are a little more important with time and everything. So our hearts go out to Jed. He's family to us, not just the ThunderCast family, but me and you. He's become family. And I know there's a lot of people out there listening and watching that have also come to know Jed. So, Jed, from all of us at the ThunderCast and Marshall family, we're here for you.
Yeah, I reached out to him when I heard the news, and you're right, man. He's turned into be a brother of mine. That's the way I look at him now, and I know a lot of folks do. So even if you're just a casual listener of the ThunderCast, Jed does so much for us that allows us to do so much for herd fans. Just think about him, for a little bit, because he's kind of going through it right now. Their family's going through it right now, and there's really nothing but time that get you back in the swing of things. There's nothing you can really do to speed that along. It takes its own course, and everybody's different. But right now, you're right. We're thinking about him, and can't wait to have him back when he's ready to come back.
Yeah. All right. How about a word from our sponsors on this show, KD? Leasure Oliver PLLC, also known as 304carwreck.com. Let's hear something from them. If you've been hurt in a wreck, call the law firm of Leasure Oliver PLLC. Find them at 304carwreck.com.
All right. Like I said, not really sure what's on the agenda today. I'm sure we're going to talk about some things. I'm sure there's some of the weeks we're going to cover and all that good stuff. So I'm going to kind of play a secondary role today and let you take charge of the flow of things. And I just want to talk, man. I just want to have a good time for a little while.
Yeah, well, we're going to start off with our 5 things, and over 2+ weeks, there's been a lot of things, but I've got them condensed down here. So here we go with those. And now here are at least 5 things every herd fan needs to know this week. As always, brought to you by Ignite Link, the Tri-State's premier IT management team. KD, you already mentioned of the week, and that's where we're going to start off. Number 1, here are our SBC, quote, of the week, end quote, winners. We're going to start off with men's golf, Ryan Bilby. What a performance he had. Under par all 3 rounds in there. -9, 9 under on that first round with 10 birdies and 1 bogey. Ended up tied for second in that. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in Around the Herd, but we got to tell you why he won it. And just a heck of a performance for their first official round or tournament of the year for men's golf. Not to be outdone on the women's side, Emily McClatchy also had a very good performance there. She finished tied for second as well. for women's golf. And then Sophia Hurion, this was her second consecutive. And this was the previous week. She had won it 3 weeks ago, and now 2 weeks ago. Women's tennis is, just rocking and rolling. And again, a lot to talk about with what they've got going on. People are going to love to hear that. But Hurion has been a big part of that, and she's rewarded for that. So, number one, there's our of the weeks.
Yeah, 3 of the weeks. I did not have the golf program sweeping of the weeks at any point, really. But you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
But what a way to start it. Dang. Both sides of the program notching an of the week early on. Remember that kind of happened last year with the women's golf team. And, of course, Ryan Bilby's just been I don't know what you call him. He's just been great for a number of years. But what a performance. Tied for second, and both of them tied for second in their respective tournaments. Great weekends by those golfers. And I don't want to skip over it. I know you got some things to say, but I want to say this at the outset. Golf, swim and dive, track and field. 3 programs that have been doing really well. Tennis team this year is amazingly well. The track teams, cross country, track and field, all that, all of our runners and field athletes. As much as we talked about it over the years, like it's really easy to follow these sports because by and large people know what the events are, that thing. I'm not sure that there's been a better time than right now that all 3 of these programs are performing as high and as good as they've been performing. It's a really good time to just latch on to one of those programs or a couple of those programs and just become a fan, like kind of care about what they're doing week to week instead of just relying on the ThunderCast to tell you how they did. Because as a guy that follows these programs on social media, they're really easy to like. Really, really easy to like. And we're seeing some all-time greats in their respective disciplines on these respective programs, which makes it that much easier to follow. We all love football. We all love basketball, softball, baseball, that kind of thing. But there's an Olympic sport that you can squeeze into your herd fandom right now that it's a great time. You'll be rewarded with your dedicating your time to those sports. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, and nearly all of those sports. I don't know of much going on with the Fitch, the pool, in its future plans. I know they've done a little bit more to electronic scoreboards and things like that down there, but some major developments coming up, as I understand it, for tennis, for track and field, and golf as well. Things that have been in the pipeline, but this administration is really focusing on trying to elevate all sports. I know some people watching and listening may not agree with that, but they might not follow it as much either. They just say, "Oh, we're just talking about football and basketball." We're not, man. They are putting in a lot of effort into facilities and elevating these programs as well.
Yeah. Well, look, let's just take that from the face value that football and basketball, right? Big investments in facilities over the years for football, and we're winning championships again. We're playing at a high level again, and even if we're not playing for a championship, we're right there in the thick of things where a game here or a game there puts you in that championship conversation. And then you go out and you completely revamp the Gullickson and Hall's gyms, right? And now you've got that facility, that auxiliary gym looks amazing, right?
Sure does.
And then you see the benefits of that. Of course, it helps that you hire a rock star of a coach last year in Kim Caldwell to make a run, and you have some all-time great players. But it takes those facilities, right? You can't just split time in the cam all the time. And so now you see the benefits of that paying off. Corny Jackson in year 1, which everybody thought was going to be a major rebuilding year, right in the thick of things to possibly be one of those top 4 seeds in the SBC tournament, right? Yeah. A conversation we'll have later. Yeah, it's hard to duplicate what last year's women's basketball team did because, come on, man, that was like historic, But strides still are being made to elevate the floor of that program to a new floor. And it takes facilities to do those things. And that's what is attractive to prospective athletes. So our track and field program needs more facilities of their own. Our golf teams need to be able to practice and plan the way they want to, right? We're going to see the softball team and the baseball team continue to reap the benefits of having their own facilities around over there. And you just need that stuff. So I don't buy the argument that, well, I buy it because it's real. Some fans don't see the value, but all of our programs deserve opportunity to have the best that we can offer them as an athletic department.
Yeah, and my final comment on that, it's also fun to watch. I was talking to a very, very rabid Herd fan over the weekend, and because of some of the things that I was putting on Twitter on my personal account, decided to watch the swim and dive championships and everything, and it was just like, man, this is extremely fun, and I need to get there in person to watch this.
Yeah.
Moving on, number 2, we highlighted it a little bit, saying they're rocking and rolling, but tennis is now ranked 43rd in the country in the ITA rankings, and that's the big dogs of the rankings. That's what they go by for the individuals, the doubles, and the teams as a whole. This was when they were 8-1. They went 3-0 after that, and now we're looking at 11-1, and those new rankings come out Tuesday. So the next time, I think when we're talking about this, we're probably going to see up maybe in the high 30s.
Yeah, you're right. You're thinking easily you're a top 40 program because that's only three spots, but 11-1 on the season, right? 11-1. Just cemented themselves as the best program in the state of West Virginia.
Yep.
And that goes a long way with a lot of fans because they don't care what sport you're playing. As long as you beat West Virginia, that's all that matters, right? To a lot of fans.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. But for guys like us who follow the tennis program week to week, the players, a lot of those high performers, it's really nice to see those rankings represent the talent that's on the court, instead of just being tossed aside like, oh, you're just another mid-major program or whatever. Because remember, this is not football. This is 300 and some programs, that outside of football, everybody's in the same ranking, just like basketball. So this is a big deal, man. For 3 years now, I think we've been one of the top 2 or 3 programs in the Sun Belt. It's been James Madison, Old Dominion, and Marshall.
Old Dominion has been killing it for a long time, and they were ranked 42nd in this, and we were 43rd. So if that tells you the kind of respect that we're getting, they are constantly ranked up there and have individuals and doubles that are ranked very high. So we're getting some good recognition from this.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. The floor of this program over the last, since we've started doing the show, has been elevated, I would like to think, and what Coach Mercer is doing with the program is nothing short of amazing, because he's a tenured coach, man. He's been there for a very, very long time.
Yep. And
to now, in this new Sun Belt era, take that opportunity to elevate the program. I mean, that's the job he's done and his whole staff has done is pretty noteworthy.
Yeah, I think he's one of the most respected coaches at Marshall for, his tenure here. You've never heard any kind of thing other than what a great guy and what a great job that he does. And seeing the fruits of those labors sure does look good. And there's a little bit of a theme that we're going to talk about with a lot of these stuff. I want to get into it more in around the herd, but it's the freshmen and some of the talent that we've got in that is already doing, and tennis is one of those, but we'll talk about that when we get down there. 3, they're calling this red zone rewards. I'm sure you've seen it. Purchase or renew your football season tickets for chances on these prizes. One of them has already gone. This drawing on February 2nd was a Tony Gibson signed helmet. February 28th is Sky Suite tickets to a home game. That's coming up this Friday. So might want to get your renewals in if you're looking at that. Purchase tickets or renew before then. March 14th, behind the scenes facility tour. March 21st, a Tony Gibson signed football. April the 4th, I know you had your eyes on that. Marshall football gear pack, and April the 11th, run onto the field with the team. Before I have you comment, my only question to everyone listening, Ryan, Crisp, whomever needs to hear this, it says run onto the field. How do you feel about a leisurely stroll? Because if I win that, I don't really want to get gassed or trampled by the team. I'd rather just, kind of like throw a wave up to the crowd and take my time to get out to the 50.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, can I be the last guy out of the
Yeah.
tunnel, not leading the charge out of the tunnel? But so I'm assuming that the earlier you renew keeps you in the running for all of these prizes, not just the week that you renew, right? That's got to be the way it is.
I'm fairly certain, yes.
So that would behoove you as a herd fan to get off of your butt faster and give yourself more opportunities to nab one of these cool prizes, because they are pretty cool prizes. And yeah, you're right. My eyes lit up when I see gear pack, because I mean, I've got a lot of Marshall clothes, and I love to wear Kelly green every day if I can. But at the same time, I'd love to be able to get my hands on like some of that fly ass team issued apparel, because the coolest stuff doesn't make its way to the shelves a lot of times. And I get that, but man, every time I see stuff like that, I'm like, you know what? That's really what fans want. They will pay for like the team issued apparel, and but if that's what you get, if it's a team issued gear pack, sign me the hell up. Like, I'll buy extra tickets just to, get something like that. Cause, that to me I love autographed stuff. I like memorabilia pieces. I'm not trying to downplay this, but you and I think a lot alike when it comes to sky suites and tickets. Man, I want to sit in where the vibe of the stadium is. I'm not really a sky suite guy. But man, it's all about gear for me. Like, what's a podcast host got to do to get a care package around here, man? I mean, I don't know. Just, anybody that might hear that, just holler at me.
Now, you and I are both on the same page that there are a lot of people that sky suites are their thing, and this might be the most attractive thing to them. I myself, I enjoy, being out amongst the crowd and things like that. I've been up in the suites. They are great for what you want from them, and that's not my cup of tea or your cup of tea. Now, I think that the deck on the shoey, that's a totally different thing, because you're out and about with the people and you're moving around and things like that. That would be more my thing. But we are already a record for this year on renewals, so if that doesn't tell you, get in here early, get on these, and you have a chance at these great things. I give out some kudos to the people that are behind this. They're doing something, to reward those people. And there is already some excitement on this season, on these tickets and everything. So they are rewarding those that are getting this done early.
I tell you what, also, I think there's a little bit of fan motivation, because I think a lot of people took some things personally, the way that there was a transition in coaching. And they're like, you know what? Screw this stuff. So whatever your reason is, I'm glad it got you off the couch, because we've been looking for ways to get more butts off the couch and into the Joan for years. So whatever did it, I'm glad, because we want to see you there on Saturday, and I want to see you there for spring game coming up. I don't know if we're going to talk anything about spring game, but that's a big deal. We're trying, not just we as the Thundercast, but we as Marshall Athletics and the collective we are trying to turn that weekend into a bigger event in Huntington, because you're starved for football by the time spring game rolls around, and it's an opportunity to get out there and tailgate and get your fix a little bit. I tweeted that it's an opportunity to get your football fix after a long winter and give you a little bit of something to latch onto heading into summer before the season starts.
Absolutely. The last thing that I want to hit you with there, I was talking about me running out onto the field. Yeah. I'm going to break you and make you laugh here, because you're going to remember something. But me running out onto the field would be like somebody making that difficult climb up to the loft. And And you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, for all of our old Alpha Sig friends who remember the house on Fifth Avenue at 2021 Fifth Ave, you'll remember the trek to the loft up there. So you'll know who Russ is talking about too.
Yeah, hit me up, guys, and I will give you that private story. But when it takes 4 minutes of heavy breathing before you can even say what's going on, guys, it was a tough track, and I don't want to be doing that when I'm trying to run out onto the field. Should I win that thing? So. All right, number 4, broken records galore, and for the first time on the Thundercast that I can recall, I'm going to say that I'm not going to get into all of these because there's so many of them in the Around the Herd. I don't want to be redundant. I'm just going to say a little bit of foreshadowing. Kylie Maston, yet again, broke her own 3K. It was up in Boston at a meet at Boston U while Marshall was holding their Marshall Invitational down here simultaneously. And also Ksenia Lunyashina. We were talking earlier about freshman phenoms, and in these programs that you highlighted earlier, broke her own record multiple times, sometimes on the same day. She did it in the prelims in the morning and then just beat it again in the finals. 4 golds, 3 silvers by her. She tied for the most decorated swimmer or diver at the Sunbelt Conference Championships. Again, more on that. There's a lot of broken records, but I'm going to talk about those in Around the Herd. But give me your thoughts on anything with the record breaking.
Just being able to keep up with the swim and dive championships from afar. I was working. I did not have access to ESPN Plus. I could not tune in and check things out. But it seemed like every few hours it was another record. I feel like it was a record day for breaking records is what it was my vibe from that. It absolutely stunning. It's staggering results from SBC championships. And I don't want to get into it because I don't have it all written down, but I just from memory, which is terrible. That was the theme of the championships for me was records and individual and, relay champions. There were a lot of them for the herd. A lot for the herd.
Yeah. And again, we'll have all of those. We'll talk about them more, but there's no need to talk about them twice. Number 5, and our final thing for this week, the men's basketball game on Friday, February the 28th. It's our final game of the regular season. Has been elevated to ESPN's linear channels. Don't know yet if it's going to be ESPN2 or ESPNU. That should be announced here in the next couple of days. And we do know it'll be at 9 p.m. It is the second part of a doubleheader that we have with the women's team. And Emily Colandrelli, the West Virginia space woman, will be there for both of that. So it's going to be a must-see night, the final day of the season for the regular season. But linear channel ESPN 9 p.m.
Yeah, got to get out for the big games. Number 1 and 2 games. You'll have your opportunity to double dip a little bit, but being able to also get out there and have a photo op with Emily Calandrelli is pretty cool. I mean, she went to space, for crying out loud. You know what I'm saying? It don't get no cooler than that. That's pretty freaking cool. And by the way, you can follow Emily if you want to. If you're listening to this, you can follow her on X at the Space Gal, GAL. So I recommend that you do that. You might as well support those that are achieving at the highest of levels. And she really appreciates being part of the herd. So that's the kind of stuff that we love. I wish I could be there for that. I know full well that I will be on duty at some point working, and I won't be able to make those basketball games, but that would be so cool to be a part of that. I implore you, get out to the final game. Not only are they big games, but they actually mean something in the standings. The herd, like I mentioned before, could land in that top 4, which is really where you want to be for this new Sunbelt Conference Championship format, basketball tournament championship format. You really, really want to be in the top 4. Now more than ever, I think, with the way they've changed the format, the lower seed you are, the more brutal it becomes. So these are big games, not just because they're at home and they're to be senior night and all that kind of stuff, but these have meaning for championship relevance and seeding, which ultimately could catch fire for a couple of days and you're a tournament team. And all you can ask for is an opportunity, and the Herd's going to have an opportunity to take care of some business.
Absolutely. More on the basketball program and where they're at in the rankings here coming up. And it's a pretty good transition spot. That is our 5 things every Herd fan needs to know this week, a true 5. And as always, thanks to Ignite Link for bringing us those.
I tell you what, I don't know. Were you going to go straight into Around the Herd?
We don't have to.
Okay. Well, if you were, I just want to let's just spend like a couple of minutes and bring some football into this episode. I think we should be talking about spring game a little bit for, because, that's the next big thing. So I want to talk about that. By now we know that it's going to be April 12th, the weekend of April 12th. We've seen multiple times the drive to get 10,000 fans in the Joan for the spring game. And I want to talk about that as it relates to just us, not us, the ThunderCast, but us as Marshall fan base. And I also want to talk about that in the context of how we are now seeing more and more colleges coming out and saying, we're not going to have a spring game. I got some hard feelings on that, and I want to explore those. And I think the what we're doing is the right thing, by having those games. So, where do you want to start with that?
Let's start with it's April the 12th, and it's $5 to go. I think that's a great start. Get your tickets right now. Shameless plug coming from the ThunderCast is we have got a giveaway. It doesn't matter when you bought these tickets. As long as you buy a ticket, each ticket is an entry into the giveaway. The only caveat is you must be a Big Green member. If you weren't a Big Green member when you bought them, you can still do it anytime up until our drawing, which will be that day of the game. And you don't have to be a certain level. You just have to be a Big Green member. So $5 a month, $60 on the year, $5 to get in. The giveaway is a 2-night stay at the Southside Suite, value up to $400, to $200 night stays. And there are no restrictions on the day that those are, just as long as it's open as a booking.
Yeah, and that's a cool giveaway too, because I've spent several nights in the Southside Suite. It's very comfortable, right? It's mighty convenient, and you've got some amenities. You talk about an early season football game or something like that. When you're talking about a September night or an early October night, man, now you're talking about some super duper good value, because you get to take advantage of everything else that you have, on the property. But that is a killer giveaway for somebody that doesn't want to deal with like a hotel stay. It's pretty nice. But you're right, $5. And I said this, and I'm going to keep saying it because I think it's the easiest way to get more and more people involved. Man, if you drop a 20 spot and buy 4 tickets and bring 3 of your friends with you, that's 4 butts in seats, right? And if you can take that a step further and say, hey, man, why don't you guys, like, since you guys didn't have to buy tickets, why don't you buy a couple and see if we can bring a couple more people, and if you can snowball that one guy into a dozen guys, that's the way to do it, because then you're going to be able, tailgate spots are generally like $20 or something.
$20. I've got it right here. I just wanted to make sure. Kickoff 3 p.m., $5 to get in, 20 for the tailgate spot.
So there you go. You can get you a tailgate spot. By and large, you can almost choose your spot, unless this thing just totally blows up and a lot of people show up, which I hope happens. You can pretty much tailgate wherever you want. Of course, we're going to be set up there across several spots and have a nice footprint like we normally try to do. But it's a great day. I mean, you can't spend less money and have more fun at this time in the Marshall Athletics calendar. You just can't. So there's no reason not to do it unless you're just tied up and going to be out of town. If you're going to be around, there's no reason to stay at home. Like, come out, give your opportunity to tailgate, meet some Herd fans, have a good time, go in and see what this new team looks like. It's your first opportunity to get your eyes on a new team. We don't know if they're going to do like an actual game or if it will just be some, exhibition type stuff. And who knows? Who cares? You get to see your eyes on new quarterbacks. new running backs, new defensive players. Like, we lost a lot in the portal cycle. We've talked about it ad nauseum. And between that and exhaustion of eligibility, it's a new look herd. Not even to factor in a transition with coaching staff and all the normal transition that comes with that. That alone is worth your price of admission, to be able to get your eyes on this team for the first time before we head into the summer session and then ultimately the start of the season.
Yeah, and I said it. Somebody on Twitter had said that they thought that the spring game was not needed anymore. You saw that. You responded to it. I responded to it from my personal, and I was like, revenue. All right. Our school, our level of schools, they need that. That helps them with the budget. But I think even throwing that out, if they said, hey, this is a free event, come to it, it's still so important for the fan engagement. I think it's so important, especially in this era of the transfer portal and everything. You need to be aware of who you got. You want to be not looking at, well, I better buy a program here so I see who's going to be our starting quarterback. You can come out and get a really good look at who we got in the portal and who we signed from high school and those early enrollees that you talked about before on the last time you and I recorded. Several of them are already enrolled and participating in the spring. You can get out and get a good look at those guys. You can get out and congregate with the fans and talk shop and get a look at it and, go around and just see everything that you want to prep you for that next 4.5 months that you're going to have to wait until you can get back in this spot. It's so important, almost at that halfway point where you can just hop right in there and say, man, football's back just for that one day, day.
Think about the excitement that you mentioned earlier about renewals being at an all-time high. Think about that, right? So we're in uncharted waters because we've never had this much activity this early in the season from a season ticket renewal standpoint. So if we can capture more of that, and you're right, these games are needed because we're not Texas, and I think that it's so cowardly that they're not playing a spring game. You are so worried that teams are going to come after your players. That's a you problem. If you can't keep your players, that's a you problem. There's always going to be guys that think the grass is greener. And we've seen it. And we've seen a lot of guys leave our program thinking the grass is greener. Sometimes it's not, and that's a harsh reality you got to deal with. But I think it's very cowardly that you have all the money in the world and you're still scared to the point that you don't want to play a spring game. Like, it's a pretty simple solution. It's like, we're not going to allow recording, devices, and everybody's got a phone and you can record. And I get that. But if you're up in the nosebleeds, how good a video are you going to get from your cell phone? You know what I mean? I just feel like, or if you don't, the argument from Nebraska was like they had portal entries because it was televised. Don't televise the game. Like, what are you doing? Just don't do that. So, but teams like Marshall need that.
KD, I agree with you. I know somebody else agrees with you. I'm going to switch it over to our correspondent, Bobby Pruitt. Bobby, what do you have to say? If you're scared, get a dog. Thanks, Bobby.
That's right. If you're scared, get a dog. But this is more about the fans than it is about the team, because you're not going to do anything to try to risk injury and you're not going to do any of that. But also what it does to benefit the team is a lot of these guys are going to run out of the tunnel for the first time in front of a crowd and get a little taste of a mild taste of a game day experience at the Joan as a player.
That's an excellent point.
But also you've got depth guys that are vying for playing time and vying for a spot. And that game means something to them because that might be the separator for them being a bench guy or making the two deep, or for example. It's just, there are more reasons to play this game as Marshall than there are not. Not even the revenue stuff, not even it gives you an opportunity to sell more season tickets. None of that. From a fan standpoint, I've come to want that game over the years. I've come to like, man, I need to see a little bit of live action football. I need to see Kelly green and white flying around. I just need that,
I think that you may have come up with the single best thing that it's needed from the players, but they need the fans to be there. What's it going to be like for them to run out? They've had spring games before at other places. What's it going to be like when they come out here and we do have 10,000 plus and we do have rabid fans? It's
an oh shit moment.
You sit here and talk about like, well, these guys have no loyalty. These guys may hit the portal as soon as the spring game's over. Give them a reason not to by being there in the stands and them going, wow.
Yeah.
These fans show out. So that might be one of the best points ever for why you would want to have this game and why we need to have people there. And I don't know why that never crossed my mind, but I know that we've always said we want them, to have a big showing for the players. I'm sitting here the whole time looking at why we the fans need it, but those players need us to show up more than we need them to put on a great performance for us in the spring game.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Hopefully that's an oh shit moment for some of these guys. And they walk out and they go, oh shit, they care about football so much that they've got 10K, on a random Saturday in April for a spring game that might last an hour, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, because there are programs out there that will pack their stadium for a spring game. Some of these same programs who are talking about not having one. That's just such a big slap in the face. It's like you are to the point now to where you're like, you know what? We don't need you. And Marshall's not doing that because we know they need fans. They know they need fans, right? We're just not to that level. And I would like to think if we were ever to be at a level like Texas, Ohio, ever, that you would still have a spring game and you go, you know what? We don't care what you see because we're confident in who we are as a program and who we are as coaches and players. So what? We're playing the game. This is not a reason to, tuck tail and try to hide everything because there's a lot more at stake. Just another reason that big money is ruining college football.
With 46 more days to go before this, you and I are going to talk about this a little bit every time leading up to this. So we will have much more about the spring game before. Hopefully some more on some giveaways, some exciting things, and we'll have more on this. But for now, why don't we take it around the herd?
Let's do it. I've gotten off my soapbox. I got out what I needed to say.
No, man, what a soapbox. I'm telling you, that was some good stuff. All right, here we go. And now, Layer 1 Solutions, your experts in business connectivity infrastructure, takes you around the herd. KD, we have a massive lot to talk about, and we cannot go down each and every little thing. We just don't have the time. So I'm going to hit as many of the high points as I can. You feel free to chime in with anything you want because we do have time to discuss it. I just can't list every single thing. Yeah. Tennis beat Wake Forest. Great win back on February the 2nd. Then they beat Indiana on the road, swept Miami, Ohio on the road, finally got a loss on the season to Virginia Tech on the road, then came back, beat VCU and Richmond in a doubleheader on the same day this past weekend, and then Sunday traveled up to Morgantown and they beat Illinois State and Radford this weekend in addition to those other games I said, and then traveled up to Morgantown and handled business up there 5-2 after sweeping on Friday Illinois State 4-0, Radford 7-0. John Mercer, as we said, has this tennis team just killing it.
They are rolling, man. It is really easy to love this tennis program right now. It's always easy to love herd athletics programs, but everybody loves a winner, and dude, they are just doing nothing but winning, and I hope this weekend, if that's what it takes for people to care, good. We went on the road. So you can't say, oh, you won in Barbersville, you won in Huntington, whatever. No, you went on the road and handled your beeswax. And I've seen a lot on social media here the past couple of days have started talking about that, right? Talking about that. And just get on board, man. It's when I go log on to Twitter and I see that they've posted the final results of a match and then I'm like the first or second retweet to that.
Yeah.
That sucks, because that takes literally nothing to do. Like, push your finger on the button, man, and get that news out to the herd fans that follow you that might not be following tennis.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the freest thing in the world that you can do. Do that. Just click retweet, done. Right? I hate that every week every like tennis and swimming I'm like the second or third retweet on these, and I should be like the 50th, But anyway, Mercer's killing it. The staff is killing it. This team is killing it, and they are going to be tough to beat when we get into SBC season.
Yeah, and that theme that I said, I'm going to call back to what we said earlier, that theme about freshmen. I just want to highlight, we have JoJo Strom and Aisling McGrain and Sophia Hurion and these seniors and juniors that we've always heard about for these past couple of years. But you're hearing a lot about some freshmen on this this roster, and with what they're doing with the results. The only thing that I'll say is I hate that we don't have the official pronunciations for these. I always say that it is important to us at the ThunderCast to get your name correct. So I apologize because we don't hear it audibly. But Noor El Owazani is a freshman from Morocco. Meredith Riley, a freshman from South Point. Nel Van Oot, a freshman from Belgium. And finally, Alina Makrinskaya from Ukraine. Little local flavor, little international flavor, but some very good results from our freshmen. We're going to talk about that in several different of these around the herd athletic teams and how we have these freshmen making huge impacts on here and what that tells you we probably have to look forward to over these next several years.
Yeah, and just wait until facilities get put in place.
That's right. That's right. Moving on, we are going to go to men's golf. We already talked a little about it, but starting off the season, 4 of the men's team that are usually not your usual names. We're at the Thomas Sharkey Individual Collegiate down in Georgia. Kel Ropietsky was the highest finisher for Marshall at that event, tied for 33rd. Then the usual names were back for the Loyola Intercollegiate, and that's what Ryan Bilby, where he just went off in that first round that we talked about earlier. We already told you he was tied for second, 12 under on the tournament. Marshall's team placed 7th out of 19 teams in that event. Kolaski and Aber both had huge final rounds at 5 under and 3 under respectively, but they got off to a worse start going above par, so they finished a little bit lower. The 9 under in that first round was the best round of the tournament for any golfer for Bilby. Just a really, really hot start for this men's golf program.
Mm-hmm.
Women's golf. We talked about this earlier too. Marshall actually finished 9th of 12. So as a team, they didn't do nearly as good at the Columbia Classic, but Olivia Cochan finished tied for 5th at even par to lead the herd. And then that Rivertown Invitational earlier this week is where Emily McClatchy had that tied for 2nd even par finish, but tied for 2nd, only 1 stroke behind the lead. And the bigger news from that is the entire team had a great showing, 2nd out of 14 teams and only 2 shots back.
Yep.
The first one, not as good as a team, had a good solo performer. Second time, came very, very close from picking up a win early in the season. Looking great on the links for men and women.
Mm-hmm. Sell the hats, please.
Yes, please.
Sell the hats.
Yeah, I don't wear a bunch of hats, but I'd still buy one. Track and field, several first place finishes for Marshall at the Liberty Open earlier this month. Kazuma Bowring in the men's 1K, Hannah Weiler in the women's 1K, Michaela Moore in the women's weight throw on day 1. Day 2, 3 more victories. Kylie Maston, go figure, in the women's 800. Even Weeder in the men's high jump, and Evan Weeder. And then the shuttle hurdles relay. And the article even said this was a unique event. So I think this was something that was just kind of like, we don't typically do the way that I read that. Well, guess what? We won. That went to the team of Jakai Hayes, Peter Oliveira, Jason Ravello, Tavon Simmons-Roberts, and Micah Hinton. Many athletes also set personal bests at that event. And then fast forward to that Marshall Invitational. Marshall won 6 of the 8 field events on day 1. I'm going to go over those winners. Ryan Mukhtar, men's high jump. Laura Check, women's high jump. Rebecca Merritt, the women's weight throw. Addison Palmer in the men's long jump. Remember what he did earlier on in the season where he was ranked 3rd in the nation. Let's see here. Laura Check in the women's long jump, sweeping at several different categories here. And Alasia Williams in the women's triple jump. The next day, they had mainly track events, and they did have the one field event. Well, that one field event, we won. Marshall had another 7 wins on the day. Rebecca Merritt in the women's shot put. Kazuma Bowring in the men's mile. Hannah Weiler in the women's mile. Garrett Ferguson in the men's 5K. Isaiah Valentine in the men's 400, which was one of those school records that we were talking about. Kazuma Bowring again in the men's 800. And the team of Nia Harrison, Maya Bose, Desiree Gee, and Bryn McKeever in the women's 4x400 relay. Although he finished 2nd in the event, Isaiah Washington was only a half second behind Randy Moss's school record in the men's indoor 200 meter. Let's pause right there.
Yeah.
When you're in Randy Moss category, you're in elite air, and a half a second behind the school record from Moss, that's scooting. You know, he had a school record in the 400, came extremely close in the 200. Also at that meet at Boston U that we talked about, Kylie Maston ended up setting a new school record in the women's 3K, 9:21.31. The SBC championships started today.
Started today. And I tweeted the over-under of 1.5 individual championships for herd track and field. I think that's a good target, right? Because I think it's going to be over. I think we're going to have at least 2 individual champions in, I don't know, some events, you know, and you got to think you got to lean heavily on Kylie Maston to bring one of those home. She's just been utterly dominant all year long, as she was last year as well. But this team, this program, and what are we now on the 2nd or 3rd year of the return of track and field for men?
Yeah.
You know, and the story of freshmen, you know, starting to make strides in a lot of sports, but I'm going to go from, how about this men's track and field team going from non-existent to breaking program records and being on the heel, literally on the heels of records set by Randy Moss at Marshall? Come on. Let that marinate for a second. You know, as much as we think about Randy Moss and dominating in football, some people probably forget that he ran some track for the herd too.
Yeah, there's some good articles out there about that if you search.
And undoubtedly, obviously, set records. And you think, all right, if you can break those records, how would you like to be the guy whose name is in front of Randy Moss in the record book? Holy crap. That's a big deal.
We talked about these freshman phenoms. I'm counting here right now, and I may have skipped over a couple, but I'm looking around the 6-ish mark, maybe 7 of those first place finishes were from our freshmen. You know, a lot of those were on the relay team. I don't care that it's not an individual. Several of them were individual. And we are looking at winning against not only the competition, but within your own team as a freshman. So, again, everything is looking up, and those were men and women on here. So, you know, we're starting to see those recruits, those first cycles coming in from Coach Roberts, getting to get on the track and field and put up these big time school records, personal best, first place finishes.
Conference records even. And let's talk about, again, without facilities.
Yeah.
They're sharing facilities. And we're achieving these things. And some people will say, well, you're already achieving this. Why do you need facilities? Well, I say look at what we're achieving without our own facilities. That's what would we be doing if we had dedicated spaces for these athletes instead of them having to split time in the Klein Center or something like that? But this all really kind of goes back to the hiring of Keith Roberts, and that was, sometimes you have to make some hard choices, and we had to let a very, very, very tenured coach go in order to make this change. And we made this change and trying to kind of change the structure of how the program leadership is laid out. And man, it has just been the 100% right thing to do as far as performance on the track and in the field goes. If we can get a few more pieces in place, mainly facilities, dedicated facilities, which you say are down the pipeline, look out. We who is it? Arkansas State that was the dominant program.
Yeah.
Which, it surprises me in its own right. Nothing against them. It's just like I didn't expect Arkansas State to be the dominant track and field team. You're going to have to do something to keep pace with those athletes and those coaches, right? And you can't just always expect to do more with less. We're tasked with doing that a lot at Marshall. Squeezing every dollar to as far as it will go. At some point, you have to make an investment and several investments to make the stretching of those dollars a little bit easier. And I think we did that by changing the structure of leadership and how that's now playing out. Obviously, the recruiting has just gone through the roof. Remember, there was a section of a couple of months where it was like every day, one or two athletes were committing to herd track and field, men's and women's. So there's a huge focus on this, and there should be. None of our programs should just kind of fall by the wayside. You shouldn't just sponsor a sport because you need to sponsor a sport to meet some sort of criteria. If you're going to sponsor that sport, you should be competing at a championship level. And if you can't, maybe you need to reevaluate sponsoring that sport. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we've definitely made the decision to try to compete at a championship level.
I have to speed us up. So some of the things that I wanted to talk about, I'm not going to be able to go in as much detail. Men's soccer, Butler was supposed to be playing us this past weekend, and they didn't have enough to field the team after they had signed up for the spring league. So we had an exhibition against the academy club of the Lexington Sporting Club. That was yesterday. Do not have any results on that. But the actual spring league for us will start Saturday, March the 1st, hosting Xavier at 2 p.m. It's free. Get over there, get you a little bit of our great men's soccer club. Swim and dive, SBC championships. We put on a hell of a run. I want to spend a little bit more time on them than these others, even though we got a lot to talk about. They finished second to James Madison. But let's go over these gold medals real quick and the school and conference records. 200 medley relay, Ksenia Lunyashina, Paige Banton, Madeline Hart, Audrey West. 100 freestyle, Madeline Hart. 100 backstroke, Lunyashina. School record, SBC championships record. Broke it twice in the same day. 1 meter dive, Grace Kelsheimer, school record. 400 medley relay, Lunyashina, Banton, Hart, and West. 1650 freestyle, Esther LeBon dominated that. That one might have been a record as well for her. May just not have put that down, but I'm fairly certain when I was watching that it was. 200 backstroke, Lunyashina yet again. 200 butterfly, McNamara, school record. And again, several of those broke it in the morning, broke it again in the evening. McNamara was definitely one of those. Then there's a slew of silver medals. Some of those were school records for us. I just don't have the time to go over all of them, but please tell me a little bit about swim and dive before we go to the next team.
Swim and dive, like tennis, is just one of those programs that has been freaking killing it this whole season. Not just a week to week. You're talking about Paige Banton, Madeline Hart, Esther LeBon, right? Like these are names that Grace Kelsheimer, these are names that Herd fans have been hearing us say for years and years and years. Upperclassmen, some graduate students, some seniors, right? But you keep talking about I got to say it. I'll butcher the heck out of it. So you know who I'm talking about.
Ksenia
Yes. Yes.
Lunyashina.
I will say it so wrong, but that's your freshman freaking phenom that is just setting, resetting, breaking, re-breaking, and re-breaking records. I think she was like a 5-6 time swimmer of the week this season or something like that. Like an amazing season by some of our youngsters in this swim and dive pro. What Coach Ian Walsh has done, another one that was a relatively new hire. What's he been? 3 years here now, maybe?
No, I think it's a little bit longer. I think he's
maybe
around 5.
Yeah. Okay, but well, still,
yeah,
it's a recruiting class at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like a full cycle recruiting class. Now think about how many records we've seen broken, how many program record, pool records, conference records. Now you're talking about SBC championship records, divers and swimmers going to compete at the NCAA championships. Like these are levels that Herd Swim and Dive hasn't seen since Southern Conference days, you know, like consistently. There may have been an outlier swimmer that was amazing, you know, through the MAC era and things like that. But Southern Conference Swim and Dive was really, really strong. I don't think a lot of folks know that. The only reason I know that is because I told you this, like when I was a student, I had a professor that was the swim and dive coach from the Southern Conference days. And he talked about that a lot in class. But now Ian Walsh has re-elevated this program to levels that you haven't seen in Huntington in a long time. And they are on a monstrous run of records and really recruiting. It's awesome, man. And I'm like you. I wish that I'd gone to more things at the pool. Like those are fun. And it gets loud in there and it gets really, really, really rowdy. It's super cool. It's probably the hardest place to find on campus.
Yeah.
But if you can find it, it is an awesome thing to go watch.
Yeah. I need to highlight a couple more of these freshmen that, again, I did get to watch some of this while you were unavailable on ESPN Plus. But in the dive, Allie Humbert and MJ Levy-Aguirre, both of those were finishing very high. So that gives you some hope for when Kelsheimer is leaving. You know, you got somebody else that can step right in. Both of those did very well on the platform dives. Lunyashina, we mentioned, freshman phenom, maybe for the entire all sports categories for the Sun Belt Conference. I don't know anybody else that's had an immediate impact like her as a true freshman. But Lauren McNamara, you heard those school records, you heard those things, true freshman as well.
Mm-hmm.
Looking up. Also, Preslava Tosheva, left her out. She was doing well on some of these things as well. And then, you know, you got some sophomores. Molly Warner is only a sophomore. How often have we heard her name? Parker Lynch, only a sophomore. You know, so we are hearing these names that just shows you the recruiting and everything that we've been doing, just like you said.
Yeah.
All right, softball. Got to hit it hard. What a tough schedule. We talked about how many games they are playing on the road before they have their opening day at the Dot, March the 7th. And, man, it's been brutal. They lost to number 10, Texas Tech, lost to number 15, Missouri. They played Iowa in there. They had a rough way to go in those first 5 games. It didn't get any easier playing Clemson twice at Clemson in their next 5 games or next however many, but they threw in some absolute beatdowns of other teams. They had a great win against Villanova. You had Jules King got her first shutout in the circle, allowing only 3 hits and struck out 11 in 7 innings. Dominant performance. We've been out hitting teams, out pitching teams, and this is looking at the teams as a whole. Our team stats versus the opponent's team stats. And we have lost some tough games, and then we have just absolutely beat down some other teams. So this is a good start to the season. We'd like to have seen more. We lost to Clemson back-to-back games, our last 2, but I'm trying to see what our record is here, unless you have it. I think we're 5-6.
Maybe. Can tell you.
Okay. While you're doing that, I just want to say, you know, Tia TT hit her first home run, was a grand slam. Riley Lucas got a birthday home run. We've just had some really cool moments early in the season for softball.
Yeah, 5-7 currently
5
for
and
the
7.
Herd.
Yeah.
Lots of ranked teams that they played really tough.
Yeah.
And you're right. It doesn't get any easier going down to Clemson for a series. But look, this is how you galvanize a team, right? They face that stuff early. This was the argument for some of those Megan Smith coach teams, that they didn't play anybody early in the year and the wins didn't really matter. And I don't believe that, right? Because those teams were good. You don't get to the conference championship game without being good. Right.
Yeah.
But Morgan Zirkle has taken a little bit of a different approach, and she's scheduling tough teams early in the season, and she's going to find out what her teams are made of. Right. And you're not always going to win those games. I get that. So she's willing to sacrifice some wins and losses to play some really stiff competition and put her team in positions early in a year to where later in the year they've been there before. You know what I mean? So I can respect the hell out of that. Now, what I want to also say is, you've mentioned a few names. You mentioned that Riley Lucas got a home run on her birthday. Tia TT hit her first one. I also want to shout out the freshman theme continues, like we mentioned to Tia, but Diamond Leslie had a big game the other day.
Huge game.
So it's the youngsters that are contributing early. Abby Darnley, not a youngster, she's a junior now, hit her first career home run the other day. Like, we're getting these things. It's starting to click. You expect to have big games from players like Bub Faringa and Brooklyn Ulrich and Bella Gerlach. You expect to see that kind of stuff. The Jules King absolute clinic the other day, the 11 strikeout game. Like, you need that. We had a significant drop off in pitching depth last year. We talked about that. They knew that. That was it's just really hard to replace someone as dominant that pitched as many innings as a Sid Nestor, right? But you were trying to do that with Bub. Played a big role last year. Savannah played a huge role in that last year, and now you've got a revamped pitching staff with mainly Bub still having to play a huge role. Paige Maynard pitched really well, the transfer from Penn State, who's an in-state girl. She's a junior. I dig that she's wearing the number 99. I couldn't resist putting the Rick Wild Thing Vaughn.
I know, I saw that.
Couldn't resist that, but it's going to take a little bit of time. But I really think once these gals get home at the dot and they walk out onto the field and see a loaded stands out there, a switch is going to flip for them again. Like, the ones that have been here are going to know, but there's a lot of newcomers on this team, both transfer and freshmen, that haven't experienced that yet. And I think there's a lot that goes along with that, with confidence building and, we're home. We've been on a long road swing. I think easily the best is in front of Herd softball this season.
Baseball, they had a tough schedule too. They went to Hawaii. That's a lot of travel for any sport, but 2 of the 4 games they lost on walk-offs to the home team of Hawaii. So very good promise early. In the first 3 games, listen to this line from Ethan Murdoch, our Saskatchewan tsunami. We'll come up with a better one, Doc. We can't think of a good nickname for you, Doc. But anyway, he was 8 for 12, 3 homers, 1 double, 2 walks, and 7 RBI in those first 3 games down there. He also did pretty good down there in yesterday's game at Georgia Tech. But they lost that first game against Tech 12-1. Nothing much going on at the plate or on the mound. But they bounced back the next day with a huge, massive 4-2 victory. This is an excellent Georgia Tech team. They are perennial ACC powerhouse baseball team. They make the tournament all the time. We ended up losing 11-6 yesterday, but that was a game too where we could have rolled over and we did not. These are those games, like you just said with softball, we're going to get better because we played this tough early. Women's basketball, just because I have to rush, picked up a couple of good victories here recently. finally starting to click. Even their loss that was strung in the middle of those victories was a game that we were right in it till the very end. You've seen, Meredith Mayer coming back from being hampered with some injuries there for a little while and coming back and just crushing it from behind the arc. Team playing a lot better basketball, having some a 70-59 victory, a 76-58 victory, starting to actually not just eke out a win, but playing the basketball that we thought we would see. And it's a great time to do it in the tournament. I think they're currently 12th out of the 14 teams. Hopefully move up if they can win a couple here at the end of the season. Maybe get in that 10th or 11th spot. It'd be really great. Men's basketball, and this is the final one. They have also been playing pretty well. Now currently 17-12 overall, 10-6 in the conference. One game that they really, really just lost. The wheels came off of it. They went to overtime against South Alabama and then lost 91-82. Everything else has been a game, and you say you go to overtime. Obviously, you were in that game, but everything looks like we are primed, hitting our stride at the right time. Had a tough road trip, going 4 games in a row on the road, but now we're returning back. We've got 2 home games, currently sitting 5th in the conference with a good chance to move up to 4th, I think, over these last 2 games. And that would put us in a terrific spot to get several of those buys, as we've talked about with the new format.
Yeah, I know we've got to go, but I do want to say this. You're looking at a potential of a 20-win basketball season in year one for Coach Corny Jackson. And early in the season, there were a whole lot of fans that were like, this just isn't working out. I think we need to pump the brakes.
Yeah.
And then you look a little bit forward about some of the talent that we already know is committed to come to the herd. We're going to lose a lot. There's going to be a lot at play. But it's not like a one-and-done year for Corny Jackson as far as talent goes. I expect an uptick, right? They'll play the portal really well. They'll fill some holes where they need to fill. But you got some young talent coming in here. Baseball, I got to say, shout out to Derek Murdoch for making the trip from freaking Canada all the way to Atlanta to watch Ethan play some baseball, and going from the negative 30s down there to probably around 50, 60 degrees was pretty nice. I can't imagine like a freaking 100-degree swing just for going to watch some baseball, but shout out to him for making that trip. Good friend of the show, good friend of the Herd baseball program. Of course, that's Ethan's dad, but and in women's basketball, you're right. Being able to get 1-2 seeds higher, saving a game in the conference tournament might be all that it takes. If they can catch a little fire, it's going to be tough. It's going to be monumentally tough in this format to be a lower ranked seed and then win the tournament. But it ain't over until the final whistle blows and you are eliminated. So you're right. It's also great to catch fire at this time.
Yeah.
If you've not been consistent all year, late February, early March is the best time to do it.
Final thoughts on this men's basketball team after you did yours. You mentioned one of the things I was going to talk about. But the word you didn't use was coming off a season where we were 13-20, that most people thought this would be a rebuild, a total rebuild of a 13-20 team. So the expectations coming in here, I saw single digits a lot of times on, the expectations. I saw people that said, I'm glad I'll eat crow because I said I don't think Corny Jackson is a good hire. Not me. This is what I'm seeing people saying here recently. And that was one of those things of what you just said they said early in this season. And now they're tweeting, hey, give this man some credit. So excellent time for them to hit their stride. But that does it for Around the Herd, and that does it for this show. What a couple of weeks that we've seen here, and more coming. Hope to have Jed back soon. We'll be hitting up me and him doing a show, me and you doing a show, and we'll have a lot more content coming out for you soon.
Yep. So I got nothing else. Take us out of here.
All right. Whether you see us at the Jack, whether you see us at the Joan, or whether you see us at those track and field SBC championships, which we will have results for you very soon on social media. No matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, Go Herd.
Go Herd. It's the ThunderCast. We'll see you next week. Buy your freaking spring game tickets already. We'll see you later.